Welcome back to Basic Bananas Radio, where we share tried and tested ways to grow your brand and get more customers. Everything from the latest in marketing and branding, right through to growing your team and creating an irresistible culture.
Hi, and welcome back. Today, I am having a chat with Ben Ridler, who has such a fountain of knowledge when it comes to measuring your marketing metrics. And it's so important for a business owner, an entrepreneur, to measure what's working in your marketing and what's not, so that you don't waste money on stuff that isn't working, and so that you can amplify the activities that are working well for your business. So let's jump straight in. Hey, Benson, aka Ben Ridler. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Very nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Ben, I'm really excited about this conversation. You've got 30 plus years experience in taking products to market, and you've really figured out what metrics that matter, what metrics we must look at. And it's often a topic that is very much overlooked. So let's start with that. You actually, before we started the recording, you talked about ambitious attribution versus even meaningful data. Maybe we get to that secondly. Where should a business even start when it comes to looking at the right numbers?
Well, look, the way I approach metrics in all parts of business is I always start with what's the outcome we want from this role, this activity. And I think my brain thinks quite in models and hierarchically. So, if the outcome is a new client or the outcome is a new lead, I'd start with, okay, here's the top line. This is what we want to track and what we're going to measure. And then really everything we do should be leading to that. And so for every outcome, there's an activity measure and there's an effectiveness measure. What are we doing and how well is it working? And so when I work with companies, in the consulting hat and with I've had a long time in the coaching sort of consulting space, that's how I structure it. And I guess, what I've found with leading and lagging type of languaging is everything can be leading or lagging depending on what your view is. Leads, for example, if we're talking marketing, that could be the outcome for the marketing team. But that's a leading indicator for the sales team. So I always look at an outcome, and then for each metric, an activity and an effectiveness measure.
Really cool way to look at it. Let's give them a perfect, maybe not a perfect, but a practical. Sorry, I've had a long day. This is my 7th meeting today, and it's only 2:30 here. Let's look at a practical example. So let's say I run a product business, and my outcome, as you said, let's start with the outcome. My outcome is to increase sales, so generate more sales. What would be an activity measure and an effectiveness measure?
Okay, so I guess we'd want to know how you're, trying to take your product to market. Yeah. So what are you doing to generate sales? And I worked with an e-com company, and we were launching them to the US and to the most competitive space in the US. And so, they had agencies and they had all the normal engagement and measures. And so we kind of built some structure around that, and we'll get to attribution later, but getting to the right data was actually quite a big job. And so all of these digital platforms are there to sell you their advertising. And so they tend to have data that helps, promote its efficacy, and it's not always as accurate as it could be. So, what I want to be looking at if I was looking at sales in a digital space for a product, for someone to make a sale, well, first they have to get to my Shopify site. So I might be looking at the amount of people who got to my Shopify site first, and then what percentage of those went on and purchased. And so that would be the starting point. And then, of course, we go down to the next level to go, okay, well, what impacts how many people get there? And now we're looking at, okay, well, how many people saw it and how many of those reacted? And so we're looking at activity, effectiveness, outcome, and we just keep working our way down. And so, I've spent most of my life CEOing. And as a CEO, if I've set the outcome, I don't really need to look below it if it's hitting the targets, But if it's not hitting the targets, then I can quickly drill down through the activity and effectiveness to see why. I was actually on with a client today who's a digital agency, and we were building the team here were building 4 dashboards for them. There's sort of ROI for their clients. Then they have a social marketing campaign dashboard. They have an outreach dashboard and a nurture dashboard. And so I'm looking at that, and I look at outreach, and I could say, okay, well, look, what I can see here is that, yep, we've had some good results. We've booked X appointments, but then when I look back over time, that's been lumpy. So what I'm seeing is that why is that? And we look, okay, conversion rates are really high. We're really happy with the effectiveness of the content we're putting out there. So why has this been lumpy? So we drill back a bit further, and what we find is that once we fill up the pipeline, the frequency of our communication goes down. So the activity drops off at the about 3 layers down from the outcome of booking the appointment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does make sense. I'm sorry, I'm nodding along for anyone who obviously is not watching the video. What are some, because there are a lot of metrics that we can measure. What are some of for somebody who runs a small business and maybe has not been very digital and diligent with their numbers, where can they start? What are some of the basic numbers that you would measure? Definitely, things that you mentioned before, number of traffic, conversion rates across different touch points. What else?
Yeah, well, look, it really is, I guess that's why we end up doing the consulting work, because it really is, quite specific to what you're trying to achieve. And for example, if I'm selling a high priced product and I'm wanting to get people to talk to me, then the purpose of marketing is probably get an appointment. If I've got an SDR team or an outbound team, then it might be to get a lead for them to call to book an appointment. Whereas if I'm selling a lower price product online, then I'm trying to make a sale. So, at first stage, I want to know how many sales. Then, as I said, I want to know how many people visited the site versus percentage converted. And then we'll want to look at the average, because I might find, oh my gosh, when I advertise here, I get tons of visits to the site and lots of purchases, but they might not be as valuable. So we want to know how much they spend. And so the way I do every company, no matter how complicated, I simplify it. And I think that the big problem with marketing since it went digital isn't the lack of information. It's the overwhelm of information. And if you've just started, and you're in a small business and you're trying to navigate your way through, the behemoth of the Facebook business back end and that type of thing, it's a lot. And it's very overwhelming in terms of the data. So I break all businesses down in a really simple way. How do you generate a lead? How do you convert a lead? How do you deliver a product or service? And how do you get paid? So, when I'm coaching someone, that's the questions I'll ask them. And then they'll tell me, and I say, okay, so specifically, how do we measure, when we've generated a lead? What do we call and where do we capture that? And so in their CRM, I'll just make sure things are absolutely defined properly, because then, when someone's got the marketing hat on, if that's their job, we know what the outcome is. And then from there, it's then, we're really able to break down those activities. It's the same with conversion. When's a sale made? When they say they're going to buy, when they sign a contract, when you get paid. They're quite different. And so specificity is really important. But I think the biggest thing you can do is simplify things to get to meaningful metrics. And I've worked with really big companies, multi-billion-dollar companies, small companies, and e-com brands around the world versus services brands here in New Zealand, and I take the same approach to all of them. So
yeah, and I think that the key point there is about simplicity, because a lot of business owners struggle to even start with measuring numbers because it's too complicated for them, or they look at too many numbers. We use a marketing ecosystem, which you would be familiar with, and a lot of our members are, where we also look first at the traffic. So what are all the traffic measurements that you need? And maybe it's just a simple thing, just how much traffic that you have from different channels. And then it's the conversion, so the sales that you mentioned, and then it's the nurture. So the relationship. So what happens? How do you reactivate? How many people come back? So for you, you talked about what's the average spend. Also, how often do they come back, depending on the product, and then the reactivation. So if I feel like if we can give businesses this roadmap and then just give them even maybe just 1 or 2 numbers per funnel, per column.
Absolutely. Less is more. Like some of the best companies I've ever met basically focus on one number. They know that the other numbers, you know, should be on track most of the time, but that they focus all their attention on one number. And we had a great example of that. I think it was last year. I was working with an e-com company and drilling into their data, and it really took me quite a few months to get my head around their data. But, you know, what we discovered was that their key number was the percentage of people who repurchased within 90 days. And there were only 2 products that, you know, we needed to sell, because if they bought one of those 2 products, they'd start picking up the rest of the products over time. And what was funny is that, you know, they had a BHAG, which was a loyal customer, someone who buys 3 times, actually kind of irrelevant. What was important is what percentage of people purchased in the 90 days after their first purchase. So we restructured our marketing around that number and our promotions around that. As they got closer to that 90 days, they got better deals, and that really transformed, you know, the thinking inside the company and the results over time.
That's such a great point. And for our listeners too, a little call to action is maybe what is your most important metric that if you could only measure one thing, what do you think it is?
Yeah, and look, it's going to be different across the board. You know, give you an example. You could have 3, you know, hairdressers right beside each other, and one of them could be a barber, and the guys there traditionally are getting paid on a percentage. You know, another one could be a chain salon, and another guy could be looking to exit, and sell his business. So they're going to be all really focused on different things, and so yeah, I think start with what it is you want to get out of this business. You know, I've had a client whose number one goal was, I only want to work 25 hours a week and have, you know, 2 weeks off every holiday with my kids, and I want my business to work that way. So we had to measure some different things. But
what did you measure in that specific case?
Well, actually, it ended up putting a lot more pressure on her husband's business to get him out of the business as well, is the way it worked out. But, you know, we just made sure we kept on track with the systemization of the business. And I would say that's probably one of the most systemized businesses I've ever met. And, you know, that runs as effectively and efficiently as any company I've ever seen. And so, and with the advent of AI, which that company's also embraced, you know, that's efficiency of it's gone through the roof, because they have a smaller team and a much bigger client base, doing much bigger size deals than they did, you know, several years ago. But you know, the systemization, the documentation of the processes, the ability, you know, of the owner to know things are on track or off track, right down to quite a granular level, probably more granular than I've ever been in my companies.
And that's a really good segue into AI and using AI marketing tech to systemize. I know you've got a lot of experience in that space. What are some of the tools that you think every small business owner must play with, use? What are some of the recommendations that you've got?
Well, I don't know if anyone's got a lot of experience in the AI space. I guess my last company was acquired in 2017 by one of the first generative AI companies, so we sort of knew it was coming. But I've got to say, it took me by, you know, it was a bit of a shock as how quickly that's evolved. Even so, like I spent most of last year playing with it and getting ready to take it to market again. Everyone should be using, you know, GPT or Sonnet or one of those, you know, high functioning ones for their sounding board in a small business. Every time they've got a question or they're looking to write something or they're looking to do something, you should be putting it through that. It's a superpower. You know, so start there, and you know, don't be afraid. You know, it's really just a case of getting used to it. It's like getting used to a new staff member. It's you know, sort of a year ago I used to describe it like an autistic teenager. You know, it's a mad genius, but it goes off the rails a lot. But that's changing so fast. And the technologies that are dropping are changing really fast too. In terms of the marketing space, there are so many marketing tools coming out, and they all have different sort of opportunities depending on who you're trying to get to and why. But I think the dramatic shift we're going to see in marketing is we're going to be far more targeted with our marketing. I think inbound's a very inefficient way of doing things. We did a lot of it, we won awards for it, but the reality is you got to make a lot of noise to get a little bit of results from that. And I think where marketing's heading is very targeted. And some of the tools I've been playing with are things like Mention. And I'm sure if you look up Mention competitors, there's cheaper ones as well. But basically, that's looking through whichever social medias you pointed at, LinkedIn or Facebook, for a specific phrase. So we were looking at it for people running level 10 meetings. And whenever there's a chat where people were running level 10 meetings, we could have that chat dropped into an inbox. And then we could have a bot go join that chat and go, oh, hey, we use this to run level 10 meetings, and join the conversation and then share a link to our tool. So, that's amazing. Yeah. So that's when it's active, when they're talking about it, they're your audience, and then you can literally join the conversation. The other things I've been looking at is, I've always wanted to create a business with a viral loop, and using AI to seed the viral loop by being able to follow the conversations and make sure that when someone's asking the right questions, there's that opportunity for that information to be shared. And so that's where I see marketing's big impact. But it's going to help us analyze data, it's helping us write ads, it's helping us write copy, it's really helping you write strategy. When I was facilitating, running strategy days, I get it to write the running sheet, suggest processes, and what usually as a facilitator, you'd do a day's prep for a day's facilitation, and that came down to like 2 hours prep to do a better job, I'd say. So yeah, I don't think there's any part of business that won't touch. I suspect all business will be AI to AI within a decade. So.
Yeah, it's incredible. I actually would love to hear your opinion on agencies. I feel like agencies are, where's the future of agencies? And what I'm talking about, agencies that offer, say, PPC services, say media buyers. Where do you think, and even website agencies, all that, what's your opinion on this? Where do you think they're heading?
As I say, I coach and have had them, and I've it's a bit like the developers I work with in my other business. Yeah. There's some who are embracing AI and some who are resisting it, and there's never been a bigger advantage for an early adopter than this. This is going to be the biggest gap those who go early are going to ever have over those who follow. So for agencies, what I would say is that as AI continues to evolve over this next few years, there's a big opportunity for them because and there's a few ways you can think about it. Like the laws of disruption tell us that everything that can be digitized gets commodified. So eventually it goes down in value to it costs almost nothing. And we've seen that with music, we've seen that with a whole range of things. But because of the speed of the development, it's very hard for a business owner to keep up with what's going on with the tools, with the things. I've spoken to some AI marketing mastermind groups, and these are people who are on there every week, a group of agencies, talking to a thought leader, and every week here's the 10 new tools that are amazing. Yeah. So what the agencies that are embracing this will be able to do for their clients is make sure their clients are absolutely getting the benefit of these tools, and we've been through this in other industries. Now, currently, if you had an agency and you had 8 content writers, yeah, you can do what 8 content writers did with one person overseeing the AI now, just by, giving it the right prompts and giving it good files for every client and looking at everything you've done in the past. And so some agencies will do what the accountants did, when Xero and all those things came out, because they used to have people getting boxes of files and going through them all and entering them all and then give you your annual accounts, and their pricing strategy. And I know this because I had a large coaching consulting firm, and we coached a lot of these guys. You know, the justify with hours and you know, incidentals, but the reality was last year's plus 15% was mainly the pricing strategy. So what you found with accounting firms is a lot of them just made heaps of profits because the partners rolled. They didn't want to sell. So you walked into these accounting firms and they were like museums. There were hardly any people there because they just had to push a button to do what all the people used to do. So some agencies will do that, and they're probably doing that right now. On the flip side of that is, you know, other agencies are going to pass on the benefits, but they're going to be able to keep adding more value by adopting the new tools. Over time, their clients will win. Yeah. So for an agency to deliver what it was delivering 2 years ago, it costs them a lot less if they're using these tools, but they can be delivering a lot more value now by keeping in touch with the tools, knowing how to learn them, how to use them, and how to apply them to their clients. And so when we go through structural change, yeah, you have cyclic change, economic cycles, and structural change where it'll never be the same again. So, you know, this is probably going to be the biggest structural change we ever go through. And so that's when money changes hands. So you'll see some agencies absolutely blow up, and you might see small agencies doing massive amounts of revenue and being able to sign up a lot of clients, and they may commodify it by dropping their prices and taking out the big guys. And others will be slow to react, and they'll be like the dinosaurs, and they'll become extinct. And that cycle is going to accelerate dramatically over the next sort of 5 years, would be my prediction.
Yeah, and I love your call to action in there, which is basically whatever industry you're in, whether you're agency or any other industry, accountant, anything, just play with these tools, because the earlier you get in, the more you get used to using these tools, the better you get, and the more chance you have to actually make a dent.
Look, if you can hold a conversation or type, you can use these tools. This is not a programming tool, yeah? This is basically like having a super brainy person who's got access to all human knowledge available to you 24/7. You just got to ask better questions, and it helps you. You could ask it, what question should I ask you because I want to achieve this? Yeah, and then you can say, write me a prompt for that. And so it's quite mind-blowing how cool it is. Like, I decided last year to test drive it. I'm not a developer. Well, many lifetimes ago, before I became a dad at 20, I was doing development, but that was in the COBOL days, so it doesn't really apply. And I've owned software companies, but you know, I haven't written code. And so when we build dashboards, you always get stuck in this place where you need to get someone who understands this API and this language to get this into this tool. And it always frustrated me because I like to get the right metrics for my clients. So I started playing around with the AI to try and do that. And it was very slow and inefficient to start with, and it wrote quite inaccurate code, and I got better at asking it the right questions. And now I can do that coding myself. Nowhere near as good as a developer who's good at that stuff. Well, nowhere near as fast, but it literally unlocked that problem for me, so I could deploy these and you know, not get roadblocked and deliver value to my clients. So there's not many problems that you can't help solve with it that I can see.
And that leads me to my next question in terms of dashboard. So we talked about metrics today, what metrics to measure, and there are so many off-the-shelf things you can use these days. What do you generally recommend for a dashboard? I know you built a few different dashboards for your customers too. What software do you use? What do you recommend?
Oh, look, it really just depends what it is you're trying to achieve and where the data is coming from. Yeah. So we use a whole range of different ones depending on the use case, from Power BI to Databox to Excel sheets. You know, it really, I mean, the thing is that dashboards shouldn't drive the metrics. The metrics should start with, how do you generate a lead? How do you convert a lead? How do you deliver a product service? How do you get paid? As soon as you get into those, you complicate it. And, you know, even today, like I had a session with someone and we got really clear on these are the things, but then you get into one of these dashboard tools and then you're into the Facebook and HubSpot metrics and it gets really tricky and you can lose track of it. So from a marketing perspective, I'm trying to think, obviously I had a dashboard company. I don't have it now, but I've been using a product called Databox, which I like a lot, and we roll that out with our meeting software. So run meetings with live data. But also, if your stuff's in the Microsoft stack, Power BI is pretty powerful. And I think there's probably a few others out there, but for me, it's kind of the dashboard's the last step in the metrics process. Yeah, it has been
And
my
and
experience.
also, I do think that you mentioned that too. I do think that many small businesses can just start with a simple Excel spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be anything too fancy.
Well, I think to work out what it is you want to measure, but and it depends on your business too. But yeah, those digital platforms beasts, the Google Analytics and they all have kind of good stuff in there, but again, they get into claiming everything as theirs, and it's hard to actually get a source of truth. So I definitely think whatever you're doing and wherever you're doing it, you want to be, if there's the opportunity to pull a metric from more than one place, you should. And so, that's why, if I'm working with a marketing agency who's driving an ecom brand, and they're presenting all their pay-per-click stuff, I'm presenting the Shopify data. So, hey, these don't match. Yeah, because you often get a sale which Google and Facebook both claim, because you're using tracking codes in Google and you're using in your Facebook posts or whatever it might be, and so they both use their attribution to claim it. But yeah, I mean, we've seen some simple stuff done. We had a company that was a logging company, and they basically came up with the idea as whenever they sat down for smoko, they just drilled the end off a big tree, chainsawed it off a big tree, and they spray painted the number that they'd done each session on there, and that worked fantastically and was motivating. So it doesn't need to be fancy. It needs to be simple and accurate. And the trick with using data as you build your teams out, and I know some of the smaller companies don't have big teams, but the key to high performance is to build trust. And so by having transparency of data and knowing what we're all working towards and how we did, it helps build that trust. And I've seen people do more to change a button in a dashboard green than I've ever seen to do in a cash bonus. Back before there was the cloud, we used to have a dashboard that got updated at 2:00 on a Friday for our 9 offices, and they all had the same metrics lined up in red, yellow, green, and man, that changed everything in that business. I guess that's what put me on this path. Yeah.
What is one question that, to wrap up, that I didn't ask you that you wish I had, or anything else you'd like to share?
Oh, look, I've been doing this way too long, and I could share all day. But look, I think if you're trying to drive marketing, get really clear about what it is that you want the outcome to be, and it's generally a sales the last step. There's usually multiple steps, so each step's an outcome, and each step will have an activity and an effectiveness measure. And then it's a pathway you're taking your clients through. And if you take that approach, I think you can demystify the hundreds and hundreds of metrics that will get thrown at you from all these digital platforms. And yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks, Ben. Where can people connect with you? Where do you want them to connect with you, on LinkedIn or your website? What's your preferred place?
Yeah, look, jump on my LinkedIn, Ben Ridler. I'm kind of a bit active on there at the moment. I'm about to do another startup. Another one in the sort of meetings and dashboard space, Trustily AI. So we've sort of been combining what we've learned over the last sort of 20 plus years in the coaching space with an AI, training that up so it can coach you through metrics and coach you through the sort of stuff you're doing, growing your team and your business. So we have a meeting sort of interface that allows you to run any software in your meeting. And yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's a whole new world doing this again after some years off, and it's changed a lot too since COVID. Working from home, you used to go out for all your meetings, But
Yeah.
now they're at home, you spend all your day doing this on Zoom. So kind of nice to get back in the world again. But yeah, so have a look at Trustly AI. If you want to get in touch with me, you'll see my smiling face and videos, and you can play with it for free and all that. It's just sort of coming to market now. And we'll put out a range of dashboards and meeting templates. We're working on some agency ones. We've got a level 10, got one for coaches. And hit me up on LinkedIn. I love this stuff. Like, I'm very passionate about it. I've spent over 20 years doing it, and I'm always happy to jump on with an EO or someone and spend 20 or 30 minutes helping them get clear on their metrics. So yeah, always happy to help.
That's very, very generous. So we'll pop the link to your LinkedIn. I'll also Trustly AI.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Thanks again, Ben, for taking the time here. You're clearly passionate about this, and I really appreciate you being so generous.
You're most welcome, and thanks for having me aboard again. Yeah, I wish you luck with it.
Thank you. And you, the listener, thank you for tuning in again and for learning and hopefully applying some of the learnings here. If you love this show, feel free to leave us a review and recommend it to someone else. And I will see you next time. Have an amazing day.
To get more from Basic Bananas and to learn new ways to grow your business with clever marketing, visit basicbananas.com.